Um, Miles, throughout the season, you know, Coach Lee and some other players have spoken a lot about your leadership and how you kind of stepped up from a leadership standpoint this year, particularly with the, kind of in the middle of the season when you guys were really going through a lot of adversity. How did you feel like you grew in that area specifically, and kind of helping these young guys kind of, stay straight as the season transpired?
I would say just more consistent as a leader. It's easy to be a leader when you're winning, um, opposed to like if you're struggling or having a bad game, speaking up to your teammates. So just for me, it's just me being consistent on the leadership and not just only when I'm doing good.
Taj just walked in here and said Miles Bridges is an all-star. Quote me on that. He's an all-star. Can you talk about or reflect on your progression from game 1 to game 82?
Yeah, I feel like I got better throughout the year. Obviously I had a rough start. Shooting wise, just finding my footing on the team. But we have a great coaching staff, and they helped me get acclimated to everything that we had going on. Um, and I feel like that's just me watching film with the coaching staff and getting better, getting more comfortable with everything.
Going off of that, you had your most unassisted field goals of your career this season. Do you feel like that just speaks to how you've grown overall as a scorer?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of do want to score more on assisted though, just to make it easier. But I try to I put the work in the off season. It's probably my first off season that I have where I could just focus on straight basketball. In a long time. So I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to see what shape and what mindset I could come into training camp next year.
Miles, you mentioned it'll be the first offseason you could focus on basketball. Coach said the work for next season starts today. What work are you going to start today to improve on your game?
Well, actually, not today, but getting like 2-3 days of rest, and then just slowly, gradually getting back into it. I feel like that was my problem before. I feel like in the off season I'll take like 2 weeks off and then come back and then do this, go on vacation. But this off season I plan on being in Charlotte the whole time, being locked in, focusing on the right things, and yeah, I don't want to get out of shape this year. So that's the main thing for me.
But you and Melo being the core, part of the core here, just what do you guys have to do to be a better team next year, especially Melo? Obviously you talked about last year about him wanting to play more games this year. Didn't happen for him. What do you think is the next step for him specifically and also you as well to kind of make this thing go the way you guys want to?
I feel like just us playing more smart in certain situations. Like for me, I'll take a bad shot or have an unforced turnover like in a critical time of the game. Melo sometimes take a bad shot during the critical time of the game. So I think us just focusing on details and watching more games. Like we can watch games together, like me going over to his house watching playoff games or him coming to mine, just seeing where like teams that's winning, seeing what plays they make in certain situations and how consistent they are with their offense and defense. So I feel like if we focus on that, we'll have a exponential growth next year.
How much do you guys want to be a part of this turnaround here? You talked about the playoffs. It hasn't happened for you since you've been here. How much do you guys want to turn this thing around and kind of be a part of this thing moving forward?
I talk about it all the time. I want to turn the city of Charlotte around. Become a annual playoff team, and fight for a championship. One day. So I just feel like I just got to keep on working. And I'm gonna have the guys in the gym this summer a lot. So we all got the same mindset.
With the leadership and the progression you talked about, did you feel like you had a certain level of responsibility to kind of carry the team on a lot of statistics night in and night out this year?
I wouldn't say carry a lot of responsibility. It was tough with the injuries and stuff, so scoring sometimes. But like my teammates, they stepped up in a big way, and they were all put in tough situations. Like our rookies, T-John gets a lot of hate, but he was put in a tough situation. KJ, Nick Smith, those guys, like the younger guys, they were put in a tough situation. So you got to credit them for coming in and learning as fast as they did, They did a great job all year, but I didn't feel like that was a burden for me. I just felt like it was, times where I had to just step up.
You've seen your fair share of coaches in your time here in Charlotte. How was Charles Lee different in this first year with them compared to Cliff and Borrego?
She was younger. JB wasn't old. Cliff old, but he bring a lot of energy. He was more like, Cliff is defensive minded too, but I feel like C. Lee is all about defense, So I feel like his defense and his energy mindset. But JB was a great coach. Cliff was obviously a great coach, but Charles for his first year, he did a good job. Oh yeah, he helped me out on defensive end a lot this year. Me staying consistent, me putting myself in the right areas to succeed on defense. He helped me out a lot this year, and that just comes with him watching film with me and me pushing me to be as good as I can be on defense.
Miles, obviously this wasn't the year. Talking about Brandon Miller, obviously this wasn't the year that he wanted after such a good rookie season with the injury and everything. What struck you about him though? In his sophomore season?
Just him being able to everything he could do on the court, before he got injured, and then even after he got injured, just how hard he was working just to make it back. Most players, if you hurt your wrist or something, they just gonna be like, oh, I'm done. I'm not doing anything. I'll do conditioning stuff. But Brandon's on the court working on his left hand passing. So that just shows how great he wants to be. And I think, and Todd's saying I was all-star. I feel like Brandon's definitely has the potential to be an all-star next year when he comes back. So I'm excited for his process, and I'm excited to see how good he's become.
Charles Lee was asked about the core four, and he said they need to bunker down and take ownership of offensive development. A lot of that comes with physicality. You come in here in post-game pressers and talked about how some teams are out physicaling you guys. You mentioned having the guys come in and work out with you. How much of that workout is not, developing on the court, but also getting the physicality to where it needs to be? Yeah,
I mean, that probably even go back to us just playing ones, playing one-on-one with each other, pushing each other every day. Even when we got like open gyms, just, being physical, not calling as many fouls because, we don't get fouls. So we just gotta push ourselves. And I feel like that's going to help our physicality. And especially when it's coming from your brother, your teammate, it's definitely going to push you to be better.
You guys could have a top 3 pick, maybe the number 1 pick overall in the draft coming up. I mean, what would it mean, do you think, if you guys can get the number 1 pick in the franchise, knowing it hasn't happened, since maybe whenever?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great draft class. They have a lot of talent in the draft class. It'll be big if we could get number 1 or even number 2, but it'll be big for us.
Going off of that, fans like to mock draft, like to see who they get added to the squad. As players, you get excited about the prospect of having that kind of pick, and you go as far as piecing right. He would play it really well here. He would play really well here.
Well, we were watching a lot of games, but no, we were paying attention to what we had going on. But like I said, it's a good draft class, and we're excited to see who we get during the draft this year. It could be any player, so we'll be excited.